How many people here have played a yo-yo? Come on. How many have played a yo-yo? Let me see it. Have you ever played a yo-yo? Sure you have. Well, I was wandering down the street in Columbia, South Carolina. Must be 15 years ago. I was working out of Los Angeles. And at noon this day, I didn't feel like eating. I was going a little stir-crazy in the hotel. So I decided to just go for a walk. I was with another chap named Michael Sobel, who's a lawyer of ours out of L.A. And we're wandering down the street. It's a beautiful day. And I saw this little kid playing a yo-yo. Now, do you know it's marvelous the way our mind works? We can relive years in our life in seconds, just like that, a millisecond. Well, when I saw this little guy, I had a great movie just whoom right across the screen of my mind. And I saw myself as a little kid coming running out of Balmy Beach Public School in the East End of Toronto. And I would run up Beach Avenue and down Kingston Road, and I was looking for a specific guy. His name was Ricky McGinnis. And Ricky McGinnis was employed by the Cheerio Yo-Yo Company here in Canada. He was a yo-yo pro. He was a champion. And I'm going to tell you, this guy could play a yo-yo. Now, they dressed these guys up. You see, they gave them a uniform. The uniform consisted of a maroon sleeveless sweater that had red, white, and blue here and a V-neck. That was for V for victory. That came from the Second World War. Some of you weren't around then. In fact, most of you weren't around then. But anyway, that's what that represented. But he had a great big crest here in the center. And it had Cheerio across it, and it had Yo-Yo Champion. Then it had little badges sewn all over it, and each one of these little badges represented a trick. And if you learned the trick, you'd get these little badges. Well, of course, he had them all. And I always remember I envied this guy because he had a great big raft of yo-yo strings around his neck. Now, yo-yo strings, when I was a young guy, were 2 for a nickel. And of course, if you had 2 nickels at the same time in our neighborhood, you were considered financially independent. I mean, now, it was a poor neighborhood. None of us slept alone in that area until after we got married. I mean, you just fat ones on the bottom, you know. I mean, it was a rough area. Well, at any rate, every now and then we'd break a string, and we didn't have a nickel to buy a new string, and he would take one of these strings out, and he'd hand it to us. He might even pat us on the head and call us by name. Well, of course, we had arrived if the pro recognized us. Because, you see, he was like the Pied Piper. When we found him walking up the street, we'd walk with him and we'd just stare at him, you know, and just look at him. I mean, we had this guy. You talk about God. We thought this guy was God. I mean, we had him deified. Well, at any rate, he would get to Kingston Road and Scarborough Road, and he'd start teaching us a trick, and he'd test us on the trick, and we'd form a great big circle around him. Now, that's what I saw in a matter of a millisecond when I saw this kid playing a yo-yo. And I suddenly had the strongest urge inside of me to play a yo-yo. I didn't have a yo-yo. So I called this little kid over. I said, come here. He was all by himself, just a little kid. You know, so he come over and I said, give me your yo-yo. So he took his yo-yo off and he gave it to me. Now, he was still at a pump your body stage. You see, he didn't know how to play the yo-yo. He was like Carol. He was just learning. But at any rate, he'd be walking along and he'd pump his body, and I guess if he kept doing that, he figured it would go up and down. So at any rate, the little kid gave me the yo-yo, and I thought, I wonder if I could still play one of these things. I hadn't had one in my hand for years. It's not bad. You can give me a hand for that if you want. Well, then I started to remember some of the tricks. That's called making it sleep. If you can't do that, you are out of luck. You can't play the yo-yo. You can't do the tricks. So, did that. Then I remembered this one. This was rock the cradle. You learn how to do that and you get a badge, you see? Isn't that wonderful?
What trick is that, Bob?
What trick is that? That's a dandy. You know, Gina asked me just a few minutes ago, John, there's a yo-yo in that bag. Do you want to throw it out? Gina asked me a few minutes ago, how's the string on your yo-yo? And I said, oh, it's fine. Now, that's the second time in a week. That's the second time in a week that that's happened. I got to get this one working right. It wasn't working right earlier. Well, yeah, John used to carry the yo-yos and clean the boards, you see. Ah, we got it gone. We're right back in business. Remember that song, John? It's just like old times. He was only a baby. He was a bad baby, too. Now, you don't believe me, ask his mother. She's sitting up there. Well, at any rate, I was in the Boy Scouts. You see, I came prepared. I have 2 yo-yos. I think I have 2. Yeah. That was Rock the Cradle. Learn how to do that, and you get a badge. Now, we had another one. Well, this is a dilly. And this one called Shoot the Gun. Now, seeing as how a pro's at his best regardless, I'm going to make this sucker work. But at any rate, one day he came around and he said, listen, we're going to have a big contest. And he said, the winner is going to get one of these sweaters. Well, I'm going to tell you, you talk about building an image in your mind. All of a sudden, I could see on the screen of my mind that sweater on me. And you talk about getting emotionally involved. What we say feeling was, we said feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. What we say cause vibration, we said getting emotionally involved in the idea, put the body into the vibration that it had to be in, and when you become consciously aware of that, you called it a feeling. Well, I could actually feel this sweater on me. I mean, I could hear all the pretty little girls saying, that's the guy that won the sweater. And of course, I'd let on I didn't hear him, and I'd say, that's right, you know, it was me. And anyway, I could actually feel this. I mean, I had to have that sweater. You know, every once in a while, something comes up, and you just have to do it. I had to win that sweater. Now, I was just a little kid. I was learning a phenomenal life's lesson, but I didn't know I was learning it. Now, Rick would come around and he'd just show us this trick once. He'd fire this thing down and he'd bring it up. I may have to get another string for this thing. Get up here. You got to do that now. Yeah, that's it. All right. Now, how many of you can do that with the yo-yo? Now ask yourself why you're not able to do that, and I am. Do you want to know why? I'm going to tell you why. See, any person in this room could learn how to do that. If you wanted the sweater bad enough, and I wanted that sweater, and I hooked the sweater up, what I wanted, with what I was doing. And I had to believe I could get it. What did Napoleon Hill say? He says there's a difference between wishing for something and believing you can receive it. And he said the key is you've got to believe it. William James says believe, and your belief will create the fact. Well, you know, that's where it all starts. That's where it all starts. I don't care how simple it is. I don't care if it's just winning a sweater with a yo-yo. It could be writing the 5 million, or it could be doing what that man did in the boxcar. It works both ways. It has no ability to change the idea. Whatever you ask for, that's exactly what you get. Now, as you take the idea that you build, and you've got the ability to sit down and design any idea you want. You see, if you are going to decorate your room, you'd get an idea here in your mind of how you'd like that room decorated. And then you'd go and get the things that you needed, and you'd put them in place until you had built on the physical plane of life a replica of the picture you've got in here. We have a gentleman here with us today that wrote the music and the lyrics for The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. Give Scott Turek a hand. Sitting right over here on the side. Stand up for a minute, Scott. Scott is the musical director over at Leopoldson Theater. When you heard Dave ask, is there anybody from out of town? And you heard someone say from Colorado. Scott is from Colorado, but he is entertaining over at Leopoldson Theater. If you want to see a good play, you want to go over. I've been to Scott's play in the past, and I'm going to tell you this man is quite a musician. Scott, where does the music start? Would you say it starts right in here? You start hearing it in your head, don't you?
Yeah.
That's right. You actually hear the music in your head. You see, Scott takes this power and he turns it into music in his head. He literally hears it. And as he hears it, he sees it written on paper. Am I right or wrong? Then you take a pen or a paper and you write it. Scott, stand up for just a second, because this is a good example. Then when he's got the music, he not only writes the music, he put words with the music. Is that correct? And we call those lyrics. And he takes and he writes the lyrics, and he knows those words. What are words? Words are nothing but ideas dressed up for our physical benefit. And you put words, and that puts more meaning then to the sound that you've heard. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Scott. Now, you see, some people will say, well, he's creative, but I'm not. That's not true. Everyone's creative. We're all an expression of the same power. We've all been given the same tools. Scott has developed those, and many of us haven't. This is where it starts. Now, you're working with a universal power. This power just isn't in you. It's in everyone. It's in everything. We use this drawing to graphically convey an idea of you, your body, your mind, your intellect. But if you were to look at this properly, this is how it would appear. It's a universal power that you're impressing that idea on. Do you know when you throw a pebble into the lake, the entire shoreline has been changed? If you throw a pebble into the Atlantic Ocean, the entire shoreline has been altered. You'll say, oh, not the Atlantic. Yeah, even the Atlantic Ocean. Do you know where our problem is? We could not see with these physical things the change in the shoreline. But understanding lets us see the change in the shoreline. Van Gogh was asked how he did such beautiful work. He did it the same way Scott does it. I dream my painting, and then I paint my dream. Do you know you'll never buy an original painting? Why? The original's on the mind of the artist. Well, we're all working with the same power. Don Slovan sensed that I believed he could write the 5 million. I knew he could write the 5 million. That gave Don a little inspiration, and he started to think about it. He started to think of all the good things that would come to him. Fame, fortune, everything. And he got emotionally involved. And as he put that idea in there, Don Slovan moved into a brand new vibration. He started to attract all kinds of different things to him. Do you think it's an accident when one person, one in sales, goes into their office and in their pigeonhole there are no messages, and another one goes in and there's 14 people wanting to buy something from them? Do you think it's an accident when there are two businesses side by side, one wins, one loses? I go to a barber shop down on Bayview Avenue, Tony's. I've been going there for 25 years, whenever I've lived in Toronto. 4 doors away is another barber shop on Bayview Avenue. I have never seen anyone in that barber shop in 25 years. I've never seen one person. Now, I know someone goes in there. I know that because the person couldn't keep the doors open otherwise. Tony's, you always have to wait. And the other one, you would never have to wait. And someone would say, well, that'd probably be a good place to go. I don't think he'd cut it the way I want it cut. And I think there's a lot of people think, I don't think he'll cut it the way I want it cut. But why is it empty? Is it because I'm thinking that? No. It's empty because that's the way that man sees his barber shop. We had some people come into Chicago one time when I was working with the Nightingale organization. They had a chicken restaurant in Ohio. It was out in the country. It was a great, big, beautiful white mansion. They sold more chicken dinners than any restaurant in the United States. People would come from 3 states away to buy from them. It's in the image. Now ask yourself, what kind of an image have you been holding? Have you been wishing good things would happen but think bad things would happen? You see, most people will let their present physical results control their way of thinking. They're emotionally involved in it. They think it's an accident that the same results keep reoccurring. That's no accident. If you've got a financial problem, if you've got a cash flow problem, if you've got a marital problem, that's what most people concentrate on. If a doctor takes a photograph of your body and then tells you you're sick and shows you you're sick, what's the person concentrate on? Sickness. What's the photograph prove? The photograph proves that the person has been concentrating on something wrong to move their body into that vibration. What should they do? They should ask for help. Where does it come from? There's only one source, and they see perfect health. Or they see prosperity. But the cynics don't believe this. And it's a strange thing, the cynics don't get results either. Quit letting your present results control your thinking. This power that I call God is in every one of us. And it's no more present in one person than it is in the other. Scott the Turk hasn't got any more of this power than Bob's got. Bob hasn't got any more of it than Reen's got. Reen hasn't got any more of it than Dave's got. Every one of us are an expression of the same power. And when we really grasp this universal concept, we're going to realize that we are all essentially the same with the same powers. It's learning how to use this. I remembered how that went, Dan. It says, because the time will most assuredly come, and the best and wisest know not how soon, when death, the leveler of all human greatness, will reduce us all to the same level. It's like burning the paper, isn't it? It's like boiling the water. See, death, as we know it, is moving out of this thing. Life, as we know it, is in this thing. But if nothing's created or destroyed, and if all science and all theology tell us the same thing, then that only postulates one theory, the theory of life. See, everything you have is going to belong to someone else at the time of your death, but what you are is yours forever. Now, we want to try and understand this concept. On page 28, we say you are a perfect instrument for spirit to express itself through. Start to see yourself. Now, every time you think of yourself, think of that drawing. Every time you think of the drawing, you think of yourself. You've got to have an image to work with. On page 28, we say, see yourself as a perfectly endowed spiritual instrument without limitation. When you do, you're going to find it easy, in fact natural, to expect the good you desire. You will also understand that doubt simply obstructs the unfoldment of the prosperity in your life. Now, read this bottom paragraph on page 28. Doubt does not shut down the workings of the power. The power's always working. Think of the man in the refrigerator car. It's always working. It never stops. There isn't some emotional or capricious God saying, oh, wait a minute, you're choosing the wrong thought. You ask and you'll receive. You ask for the wrong thing, you're going to get it. It'll be delivered right on schedule. You can make buck on it. The doubt you hold becomes the picture, which will turn into your physical results. You see, when you build the picture, you control from inside. You do not control from outside, regardless of the circumstance of the present results. What did James Allen say? Your circumstances may be uncongenial, but they will not long remain so if you perceive the ideal and strive to reach it. Do you know what an ideal is? An ideal is an idea that you fall in love with. And you know what love is? Love is resonance. It's harmony. It's in tune. It's operating on the same frequency. Well, when you get the higher side of your personality operating with the lower side of your personality, you're going to see miraculous changes take place on the physical side of your personality. But until you get these two in tune, you're going to have a problem. Because when they're not in tune, there's what we call conflict. And if there's conflict in the mind, I guarantee it'll express itself in the body. What do you think dis-ease is? It's the opposite of at ease. On page 29, one of the best definitions of faith I've ever heard came from a chap in Chicago, Clarence Smithson. Clarence Smithson. He said, faith is the ability to see the invisible. What did we say about Scott's music? No one on planet Earth had ever heard that music that he heard in his head until he put it on paper and then sent it out so that the rest of the world could enjoy what he was enjoying. It's the ability to see the invisible, to believe in the incredible. What is incredible is that there's a power in every cell of your being that operates in a totally deductive manner. It will take whatever image you impress it upon it, and it'll move you into the vibration you have to be in, to act the way you have to act, to attract the thing you have to attract for the manifestation of the image that you chose to build. You can say, using a slightly different vocabulary, I'd make the observation, if you can show me a person who achieves great things, I can show you a person who has great faith in themselves and their ability to achieve what they imagine. On page 29, I was having dinner last night with Paul Hutsey. He told me a most interesting little story. Paul was talking about, it's what's on the inside, it's not what's on the outside. He talked about it yesterday while he was talking about it last night. And he tells the story about the little black boy that went to the carnival. And there was a man there blowing up balloons, filling them with helium gas, and then letting them go. And he filled a red balloon, and then he tied it up and he let it go. And the little boy was standing there watching him. And then he filled a yellow balloon with helium, and he tied it and he let it go. Then he filled a green balloon and he tied it and he let it go. And the little boy said, Mister, he said, can black balloons fly? He said, son, any balloon can fly. It's not what's on the outside that makes it fly, it's what's on the inside. And that's the way it works. Interesting idea. We say comparatively few people today realize just how much faith in oneself, your higher self, not this false concept that we've been running around with, can't do this, can't do that. Your higher self, that side of you that's universal, that's the same side of us all. That part of you that's spiritually perfect has to do with your achievement. The majority of people never seem to conceive of faith as being a genuine creative force. Yet the truth is that not only is faith a bona fide power, it is the greatest one you will ever encounter. Ever encounter. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that whatever you accomplish in your lifetime will be in direct proportion to the intensity and persistence of your faith. Intensity, what do we mean by that? Well, remember we said one of the intellectual factors was the will. The will gives us the ability to concentrate on an idea. And when we concentrate on the idea, we're just taking that power and turning it right over. We're giving more energy to the idea. What did Emerson say? The only thing that can grow is the thing you give energy to. It's been told to us 10,000 ways. I think what we want to do is wake up. May I borrow your program, please? No, the tapes. You have a set of these tapes. You need a new tape. Some of you will be wondering how to get these out, and you're digging with your fingernails. And the ladies are getting upset because they're breaking their fingernails. You just have to press on the side. And they pop out. And then it tells you underneath how to get them out. Andy Rooney would probably get about an hour and a half out of that. Now, you've got a relaxation and visualization tape. I want to suggest that you put this to good use. On page 30, we're suggesting that you take this new understanding that you're developing, you take the description of the new you that you wrote up on page 26. That new description should include no negatives. It should be in the present tense. It should not say, I am going to become. It should say, I am. I am so happy that I am, and describe everything that you want to be. It's got to be. This is vitally important in present tense. This part of your personality knows nothing about past or future. There's only now. You ask yourself, where am I? What time is it? You'll always get the same answer to those two questions. I'm here, it's now. So this is written in present tense. It includes no negatives. Everything is positive. You write it out. When you write it out, you have built brain cells. I'm going to ask the gentleman sitting there that I had up here yesterday, Nino. Nino, do you want to stand up for just a second? Nino, you looked at an object yesterday. And when you looked at that object, you had no cells of recognition for it in your brain. Now, Nino, I am just going to mention the object. It was a metal toothpick. Yesterday, you didn't even know what it is. Today, when I say you can see it in here, is that correct?
Definitely.
Thanks, Nino. Now, do you know what Nino is saying? I built brain cells yesterday. Well, do you know as you write out this description of you, you're literally building brain cells. You're building new brain cells. Those new brain cells hold an image of the new you. Now, this is how the change is made. You use this and you let yourself totally relax. Don't try and relax. Let yourself relax. Trying is forcing, and you must let on the mind. You let yourself get emotionally involved in this image. And you know that every time you do, in a very relaxed state, wham, you just trigger those brain cells. You just think of the new you, and that picture comes up. And you know every time you do that, you're giving more and more energy to those brain cells. They become stronger and stronger. And in a relatively short period of time, those ideas will be fixed in your mind, and that's the way you'll live. When Cary Grant passed away, I read a page, an obituary on Cary Grant. There was an entire page of one-liners. The last one was by Cary Grant himself. He said, I acted like Cary Grant for so long, I became him. I acted like Cary Grant for so long, I became him. You can say, I've acted like this person on page 26 for so long, I became that person. Now, you can go over this lesson and go over it. You can't go over it too often. Couldn't possibly. We're going to touch now on what you should expect, because you're going to find that expectation is what really makes the difference. Now, as John goes through this page, I want you to think. If I built that picture on page 26, I painted the picture. It's like Scott heard the music, then he painted it on paper. Well, you saw the person, and then you painted it on page 26. And every time you get emotionally involved, you rewrite it. And you're going to find you'll crystallize it, and you'll make it better, and you'll make it better, and you'll make it better. Well, every time you do that, you're moving yourself into that vibration. You're going to get to the point where you'll start to expect the good that you desire. And John's going to tell you what will happen when you do. And you know, when I wrote that goal on the card years and years ago of having the $25,000, I didn't believe it. You may not believe what you write on that page. You might think this is really silly. You may think it's silly. Try it. I can guarantee in a relatively short period of time, you won't think it's silly anymore. Because as I pointed out, you write a lie on a card and you read it often enough, and you're going to believe it. And you're going to find your belief, as William James said, will literally create the fact.